welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week. Happy Sunday. I hope you guys are doing well. This is going to be the astro weather for the week of November 19th through the 26th, 2023. I'm titling this week and this video, Hold Your Horses. If you guys like my content, you want to see more, make sure you click the bell button below and you're subscribed to the channel so you can see all of the videos and the content that are coming out weekly. We've got new moon videos, full moon videos, horoscopes, weekly breakdowns, and much, much more. Please consider joining my memberships or donating to support me being a full-time content creator. I really appreciate it. It helps these videos kind of continue on the YouTubes. All right, so busy week ahead, guys. We got a lot going on. And before I even get into it, I just want to give you guys a little bit of like quick news. My schedule is going to be a little bit different this week, so I wanted to get this out early. Obviously, we've got the holiday coming here in the States. We're going to be having Thanksgiving, so if you guys celebrate, happy Thanksgiving. And we'll also be having Black Friday and Cyber Monday sales on my website. So all of my courses, all of my products are all going to be on sale, including candles, the astrology prints, all that stuff. So check out my website. It's in the description below at beyondtheveiltarot.com. While you're there, sign up for my newsletter. I'm not going to spam you, but we are going to be sending out all kinds of alerts for the sales and things that we've got going on and upcoming courses in 2024. Also, we are offering gift cards on my website now. So if you're looking for a gift or you're wanting to tell Santa what you want for Christmas this year, check that out. We offer digital gift cards, to be able to get readings on my website. And we're also doing something different this year. We're doing a bundle basically of readings. So if you're somebody who comes several times a year, or if you come like every other month or so for a check-in reading, we're offering bundles. So if you purchase or if you book in advance, we're going to be selling packages of 3, 5, or 10 bulk readings at a reduced cost. So the more readings you book, the more money you save. We will be having Astro 301 signups coming soon. Thank you to those of you guys who participated in the poll on the YouTube community page. I appreciate it. We're trying to figure out what we're going to be doing in the beginning of 2024, but we will be releasing Astro 301 signups. So if you took my 101 or my 201, 301 will be coming soon. And also a possibility of a live beginners astrology course, me teaching that again. So if you missed that 2 years ago, I'm going to be teaching my live 101 possibly soon in the future. So stay tuned for those dates. They're going to be coming up. And I'm going to be doing my annual New Year's Day astrology presentation. If you guys have seen the last couple of years, I generally do that on New Year's Day. Last year I was horrifically sick, so I ended up missing New Year's Day, but we plan on being here on January 1st, 2024. We're going to be doing a live New Year's Day astrology taping. We are doing it a little bit different this year, so if you want to be a part of the live recording for this presentation, we're going to be selling tickets for the event. So we'll be doing it in the morning, the late morning on January 1st, 2024. You can come celebrate New Year's Day with me while we take a look at the astrology for the year ahead. There'll be a full presentation and any of the donation, basically the tickets are going to be donation for production for that. So if you want to be a part of the live audience, check that out. And my readings are going to be opening now in January and February of 2024. So I'm booked out for the year. But if you guys want, you can also catch me on a live on Fridays. Generally, we do live readings on the channel, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You can catch me here doing tarot or astrology. This Friday, we're going to be doing astrology. So look for that link. That's going to be somewhere in the community tab. We generally post it on Wednesday or Thursday before we get to the live readings. Okay, so thanks for letting me do the spiel. Got to get that out of the way. All right, so themes for the week ahead. We've got so much stuff going on. There is like Sag transits galore. So if you're a Sagittarius, you're probably thriving in this energy this week. We're going to be seeing Mars enter into the sign of Sagittarius. So that's going to be a interesting kind of kickoff, especially with some of the aspects we're going to be seeing between ingresses into Sagittarius and some squares to Saturn, hence why I called it Hold Your Horses. We're also going to see Mercury make contact with the North Node. So there will be a trine to the North Node where we're kind of tapping into our destiny, feeling very active and very optimistic. And unfortunately, we're going to start to see the beginning of a Mercury retrograde shadow. So the retrograde will not be until December, but the shadow is going to begin this week. And it is a doozy with the squares to Neptune. So I want to give you guys the heads up on that. All right, so the phrase hold your horses, right? This expression is used to tell someone to be patient or to wait, okay? I find myself saying this to my French bulldog all the time. He sits down to eat his meal and he just like inhales it. So I have found that I've been saying that to him a lot recently, and I was like, that reminds me of Mars square Saturn, so I'm going to use it. Basically, it's a way of advising someone not to rush into a decision or rush into some kind of action. And the origin of the phrase can be traced back to horse-drawn transportation. Being from Arizona, born and raised, grew up going to the rodeo, love seeing horses and the whole 9 yards, so definitely have heard that phrase a lot growing up. So for me, this isn't news, but for those of you guys who don't know, when people traveled by horse-drawn carriage or wagon, it was essential to control the horses properly to ensure that there was a safe journey. So whether you were carrying people or you had cargo, the last thing you want was a horse that was kind of tearing off and making out with the goods. So if a driver needed to stop or slow down, you would hear them say hold or rein in, and the horses' reins would be pulled in. So therefore, they were saying hold your horses, don't let them move forward. Likely it originated as literal instruction from someone driving a horse and telling them that this is what they needed to do to maintain control over their horses. So essentially the reins, right, is like the OG brake pedal. So those of us who drive cars, now we can hit the brakes, but back then we had to kind of pull back on those reins. So over time, the expression has evolved into a way of advising people to exercise patience and not rush into situations without proper consideration. So today it's a common and lighthearted way of reminding someone to just kind of like slow the roll. So hence Mars in Sagittarius, right? Those of you guys may or may not know, Sagittarius is a centaur. It's half horse, half man. And the square, right, to Saturn, which is the action, is getting checked by Saturn. So Saturn can literally be that limitation. So all week long, we want to be exercising a little bit of caution, pump the brakes if necessary, slow down, mind your speed and your mouth. Expect travel delays and also lots of religious or cultural conflicts and issues surrounding, obviously, the topic of war. That's really what Mars is connected to. I do think we'll see issues with air travel, airplanes, potentially new laws or regulations revolving around travel. We're going to hear more about legal disputes over border walls, immigration being, debated, a highly debated topic this next week. That will also trickle into the Mercury retrograde. And we're also going to feel the push, right? Or in this case, I think it's a fire under your tush to get Saturn moving again, because Saturn can be rigid, it can be sluggish. And the particular angle that we're seeing Mars that's squaring, from the right-hand side does have a little bit more of oomph. But on the other hand, watch, there can also be delusional drives, people who are just on wild fantasy adventures in La La Land. That definitely can come up, especially as we're starting to see Mars not just come into a square with Saturn, but we're seeing Mercury in the same sign squaring Neptune. So lots of getting lost in translation. Now we're completing a Mars cycle that actually started back in April of 2022. So as you're watching this, likely if you're watching this on Sunday, it is November 19th, but I want to take you guys back to 2022. So this was April 4th. And this is when the Mars-Saturn conjunction was first seeded. It takes about 2 years for Mars to go through all of the 12 signs. Obviously a long time ago, so you guys might have to kind of take a look back in your calendars or put your thinking caps on, but something was seeded here when Mars and Saturn came into conjunction. Now this was before Saturn went into Pisces. So this was the last conjunction that we saw between the two. And now we have made it all the way through the zodiac, and we are here in Sagittarius, and it is creating now a square to Saturn, which is now in Pisces. So when we think of Saturn, commitment, karma, timing, responsibility, limitations, and Mars, which is very much about action, drive, and desire. Maybe you guys caught my previous videos, I think in the last 2 years, where I talk about this conjunction, and it's very like Mr. Miyagi, right? Wax on, wax off, doing something structured and with form, and using some sort of containment or commitment or maturity when it comes to taking the necessary steps forward. So now that we are coming into the 3/4 square, okay, so think back to what was happening in April of 2022. What were you working on? What were you building? What were you doing? Now it's coming full circle. And so we're going to be kind of working on the final push to complete some of the goals maybe, or the wishes, or some of the collective themes. Now on a much more kind of like, big, perspective, like global perspective, I think of like how Mars and Saturn was basically limiting or throttling something, right? It was throttling what? Aquarius is rebellion, it's freedom, it's mobility, it's also, this was throttling, people who were going out and protesting. When I think of the signs that are connected to protests, I think of Sagittarius and I think of Aquarius, because this is about groups and masses, but this is also about politics and government officials and organizing groups and, major boards of, particular businesses, groups of people that oversee things. So there was some kind of motive or direction that was kind of about taking control or limiting the freedoms of individuals. Now, at the time, this was really important because when Saturn and Mars came into conjunction, Mars was the South Node ruler. So it was a lot about controlling debt, resources, finances, spending, access to money. It was in an exact square, actually, between the North and the South Node, 22, 22, 22, 22, and oh, look, there's the moon. So I don't remember specifically what events. Maybe I'll take a look at that when I do my Mars video. But just think back to what was being pushed to grow and evolve. Really interesting, the astrology. Fixed signs don't want to move. They don't want to make changes. When you have a T-square, it almost forces you to do this thing. This was pushing us, I think, to kind of recognize and realize where we were having some real issues globally with control and with limitation and oversight and loss of freedom, and all the fun things that you guys have been hearing me talk about for the last couple of years. I also think it's interesting that this is where we're going to have the North Node, but this is where we're going to have the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction right here. So it's almost like there was a throttling in 2022. We go full circle. We're starting to realize now, whoa, there has been so much oversight, so much control in the name of inclusivity, right? I think of inclusivity with Aquarius, that we're starting to kind of realize that we're trading some of our rights and our freedoms for, just being a part of the collective pool, or for equality, for humanitarian reasons. And so now this is going to be a time where all of this stuff is going to kind of get debated a bit, okay? So think back to what was going on then. I literally think back about what was happening for me in April of 2022, and that's when I was like, I got to kind of get into the flow and the consistency of some of the projects that I'm working on. That happened right on my North Node, and so a lot of the determination, timing, commitment has been put into this very YouTube page or platform. So it's kind of cool to now see it evolve into what it is now. All right, so think back to what was going on for you there. Where were you feeling limited, but also realizing that you had to make some moves? So you're joining me now here on the 19th of November. So let's bring this back here. There we go. Now, when we think about Mars in the sign of Sagittarius, right, this ingress that's going to be happening pretty soon is really important because Mars is the ruler of the North Node. We've had Mars Cazimi over the last couple days. I don't know about you guys, but it's like kicked the door in with just getting things done and like digging deep. It's been really interesting to see some of these Mars Cazimi themes. Just personally, I've been like making notes, but the setback with the Formula One racing that we had in Las Vegas, if you're into that, Obviously race car drivers from all over the world coming to have this race on the Vegas Strip. Not even 10 minutes into the race, I guess it was the Ferrari car that hit, I think it was like a cover or something that was in the street. Totally messed the car up. They had to cancel the rest of the race. So these Cazimi moments can be like eclipses where something is revealed, and it can be showing us where we need to take action or make moves. So it's interesting because race cars, right, Mars, and the Sun and Mars can also represent sports, competitive things. But Scorpio is also about revealing something. So it's kind of revealing. I think having lived in Las Vegas a couple years myself, I moved there at the end of 2022. I just chuckled and I went, yeah, it just shows you where our tax dollars are not being well spent. The roads there are horrific. Bummer though, a lot of money and a lot of time in construction has gone into setting that up. So I can imagine there's some pissed off people also with the Sun-Mars conjunction. There's supposed to be, I'm filming this on Friday, but there's supposed to be also the SpaceX launch. I guess it was supposed to be today. It's being delayed. But I'm curious to see, because these moments seed things that will play out for the next 15 to 30 something odd years. So we have not seen a Sun-Mars Cazimi happen in Scorpio since 1991. Somebody mentioned on one of the comments, I went and looked at it, and it was interesting because when it happened in 1991 in the fall, it was conjunct Pluto. So this one now, obviously years later, different vibes, still Sun-Mars in conjunction, but now it sextiles Pluto. And I haven't seen anybody else talk about that. Everybody's talking about Mars that's going to be coming into a square with Saturn, or pretty much that's it. I've heard just Mars square Saturn. I feel like I'm the only person that's been like screaming from the rooftops, but the sextile to Pluto, the breakdown and the exposure of like what's not working, but also the money and the power that's tied to war. Mars quincunx the North Node as well. So this week, some really interesting things. Hopefully it's been positive for you guys. You've been feeling really motivated to kind of take some kind of action. But as Mars now leaves Scorpio, it's going to be going into the mutable fire sign of Sag. So still feisty. I think it does very well in a fire sign, but a very different energy because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So when we see this shift out in the world, the themes that are going to kind of manifest are, more feeling of adventure, wanting to have, having a strong desire for adventure, exploration, and new experiences, because that's what Sag is about. It's about the bigger picture. We're also going to be seeing that there is still a ton of energy, unlike Scorpio, which is more kind of like plotting, research, passion behind the scenes. It is a subterranean. Sagittarius is just very much out there and in your face. So we're going to see that this energy is very dynamic, and it's going to give us a lot of motivation to want to go the distance. Sagittarius is known for its optimism, so there's more positivity. We're going to have a much more positive outlook on life, and be approaching challenges with a much more positive and kind of silver lining outlook, which is going to be very important because the first aspect Mars is going to make is a square to Saturn. Independence is a huge theme, so we may feel that there's more resistance to restrictions, especially with Sagittarian topics, travel, culture, education, law, legality. We are going to be feeling like there's no bounds to where we can go or what we can get done, which is going to give us a very assertive energy. I think you're going to see a little bit more of a spiciness with this ingress, because I feel like it expresses itself so boldly and with so much confidence. Now, philosophical pursuits are a huge theme, and spiritual matters, because many of us might be feeling a shift where we're feeling drawn to exploring different belief systems and seeking higher understanding. But keep in mind that throughout this transit, we're first going to see it begin with the square to Saturn and kind of wrap up with a square to Neptune. So there is a sense of being like, I want to learn, but it's too much for me. There's too many details, or culturally it's so diverse, or I can't understand what they're saying, or, I come from a different background. I can't see from that person's perspective. So keep in mind that the beauty of Sagittarius and Pisces is about being able to hear the story, hear the culture, experience the spice of life and the things that make all of us individual and different, So a lot of this is not necessarily about tolerance, but it's about being open-minded. I don't want you guys to approach things with just being tolerant. I want you guys to open up the discussion, keep the dialogue open so we can learn from one another and learn to also like respect different cultures. Expect a lot of impulsiveness. That's definitely a theme. I always say Sagittarians, they catch flights, they don't catch feelings. There can be this strong impulse or this need to run or run away or to escape. This can definitely come up, leading to probably some spontaneous actions, decisions, and calling in sick to work to play hooky. But you gotta love Sagittarians. They're honest, they're straightforward, and I feel like with Mars in this sign, it's about expressing opinions without hesitation. Some of you may have hesitation though, or you may fear being challenged, or people maybe condemning you for your thoughts or your opinions or your views. Remember, Saturn is kind of weighing heavy in the background. But the lesson here is about courage and the willingness to take risks in pursuit of goals or ideals. Remain optimistic, especially when it comes to overcoming obstacles and setbacks. Realize that it's going to take time to make some of these goals come to fruition. Watch for being restless and, falling out of routine or maybe getting a little bit stagnant in certain areas. I do like the squares to Saturn where it's going to wake us up and kind of get us out of that daydream so we can start making our dreams a reality and not sit back and kind of tell ourselves, well, I'll do it one day, right? Mars in Sagittarius says we're going to do it now. We're going to get going now. And obviously, there's also this idealistic energy as well. There is a sense of being motivated by idealism and a desire to make a positive impact on the world. Just make sure you're staying in the right lane. That's the best advice I can give you guys. Now, as we see Mars come into Sagittarius, it's going to be forming, like I said, the closing square. So since the spring of 2022, we've been in this cycle. And when we have the closing square, essentially this is when a planet is around 270 degrees. So this is the last square. And it's basically, heading towards the slower moving planet. Saturn moves a lot slower than Mars. This phase represents a time of resolution, integration, finding constructive ways to deal with challenges. It's basically about like a culmination of a cycle and an opportunity for growth through the lessons learned during the opening square. So you want to think back to when we had Mars that was in Taurus, and I believe that was the summer where we had the North Node Mars-Uranus conjunction right around 18 degrees. So think back to the end of July, beginning of August of 2022. That's when we saw that conjunction. And yeah, I did a webinar on that back then. And I talked so much in 2022 about being like, everybody needs to wake up. There's going to be lab-grown meat. There's going to be a bunch of stuff in the food that's not good. There's going to be a bunch of weather shocks. We're going to see fluctuations with the banks. I talked about how there was going to be a move to fuse, right, and move towards transhumanism, technology in the body. But I also talked a lot about how we were going to see the development of technology and futuristic tech and AI and things that were going to radically change our economy and also our jobs. So I'm curious to see, this Saturn-Mars square manifest as being like, okay, are we going to have hearings and topics of discussion revolving around laws and regulation with AI? How do we protect our bodies? How do we protect our jobs? How do we learn to work with it in a way that's constructive? Recently, I watched an interview with Elon Musk. I think he was talking, who was he talking to? It wasn't the Rogan one. It was the other one that he was talking to. I want to say his name's Alex. I can't remember his name. But he was basically saying, like, with heavy, responsibility, I guess, comes the need to implement, like, positive discussions and being mature and being responsible with AI. I'm totally botching what he said, but he basically said there's a need to kind of step in and make sure that they're doing the right thing with like managing this and moving forward into the future as we start to implement more AI technology. So I know that there's been meetings. We've seen that like in the White House. We've also seen a number of people who have been kind of discussing the future of AI we're starting to see it now, right? Like you see it through like ChatGPT and like, you know, other engines and stuff that are starting to kind of create this stuff. But I believe we're going to see some of the most important conversations that are going to be taking place with some of these squares to Saturn, and also like pushing Saturn to come out and unveil and like talk about and discuss how this is going to have an effect on much more than just fast food or the service industry. How this is going to really affect voting, how this is going to affect future governance, if it's going to be influencing potentially how laws are determined, if it's going to be influencing who has access to what, things like the internet, if it's going to be also implemented in other forms of authority. You know, not to sound like Debbie Downer, but I am hands down convinced that a lot of this defund the police stuff, a lot of this get rid of and get people out of healthcare if they don't want to, you know, submit basically to what's being asked of them in terms of health regulations, is because AI is going to basically be very much involved in diagnostics, testing. It's going to be involved also in diagnosing. We're also going to see AI move into positions of, I think, surveillance and police and crime fighting. So of course, these would be the people that they were going to kind of come down on the hardest first. So I'm curious to see if people are going to be pushing to see if those in power are going to start kind of being honest about the fact that there has been a slow move to start breaking down certain occupations because they know they're moving AI in, and the impact that that's going to have on everybody financially. You're going to see a ton of people that own fast food chain restaurants, or maybe they own a bunch of like technology, you know, businesses that suddenly can replace somebody that's getting paid, you know, $80,000 a year salary with a robot or an AI technology that's $20,000, increasing their profit, decreasing the need to be able to pay real people and human beings. And also we're going to see a lot of people who are going to be displaced out of their jobs. So you're going to hear more talk about, okay, well, we already have this technology. What are we going to do? Introducing more North Node Uranus things like universal basic income. Don't believe me? Go back and watch that video if you guys want. I have it on my website, or if you've already seen it, you're probably like, what the hell? Like, this is now starting to happen. So more of that next year, but I want to start hearing from the people who are going to be really making a ruckus, right? Or bringing up some really important ethical or legal points revolving around regulation of any kind and whether or not it is lawful. Now, in both cases, whether you see the opening square or the closing square, it doesn't matter. So if you think about what happened in the summer of 2022 or what's going on now, it's suggesting that the tension that's coming up from the square is about finding balance and assertiveness and the appropriate discipline and personal drive, and also just a need for more responsibility. So I do think that this is really happening. Obviously, you know, Mars square Saturn, you're going to hear some challenging things because it's not a fun aspect. When I think of these particular squares, I think of like broken bones, I think of delays, I think of setbacks, I think of not meeting timelines or trying to rush to kind of make certain things happen. And with squares, we see conflicting energy. So you guys are going to see with this square, you know, while Mars is assertive and driven and very optimistic in Sag, Saturn represents limitation and discipline. So I think the clash between the adventurous, enthusiastic nature of Sagittarius and the structured, sometimes restrictive influence of Saturn is definitely going to create some kind of internal or external conflict. This is also important because, like I said, you know, Mars is connected to the North Node. So we've seen Mars in conjunct the North Node, and then we're going to see Mars come into a square with Saturn, which means there are some hidden or secretive things that I think are about to be revealed about some, you know, move to delay or throttle things, or maybe something was going on and we weren't aware that it was a blockage, and now it's going to become more so visible with the square. Definitely a square between Sagittarius, Mars, and Saturn in any sign, especially in Pisces, though, I think is going to be about a struggle for independence and freedom. You know, wanting to explore and wanting to take risks, but Saturn is about limitations and a need for much more cautious approach. And there can be this struggle between, you know, the need for freedom and the need to adhere to responsibility and, you know, following the rules. And Sagittarius will be the first sign to tell you they don't want to follow the rules. So there's like a lot of like, don't tell me what to do or how to do it. Don't tell me where I can and cannot go. So that's definitely going to come up. And yeah, watch for that. Challenges and goal achievement, I think, is a big theme also with squares between Mars and Saturn, because Mars is goal-directed energy. It wants to get somewhere and it wants to get there fast. It wants to be the first. And Saturn is about long-term goals and ambition. So we've got short-term timelines, long-term timelines, and we're kind of feeling like maybe this is a time where we need to check in and make sure that we're on track to be meeting the goals that we want to be meeting within this next year. It is possible also that it indicates challenges or delays in pursuing these goals. So there might be a need to overcome obstacles and work, as hard as possible to realize that we can find a way forward. We just need to really pay attention to the details. And obviously, when we're looking at Mars and Saturn, there's this theme between being impulsive and being cautious. So, Sagittarius is known for being impulsive and spontaneous, and Pisces has a tendency to be much more intuitive and sensitive, and it retreats a little bit. Both of these are mutable signs, so they do well with change. So I, for one, feel like, the Mercury, the Sun, the Mars square to Saturn is definitely showing us where, we need to kind of get the show on the road, and we need to kind of get out of our self-undoing habits, or we need to be getting out of bed, or we need to be opening our eyes or listening to our intuition. These are all going to be themes that are going to be coming up. But the square is about, I think, the conflict between taking too bold or impulsive of moves and the need for, kind of playing it safe and considering the consequences. So expect potential frustration. That's definitely kind of expected throughout this week. Those of you guys who follow my Instagram, you saw last week I posted literally when Mercury was coming into the square with Saturn, when it first entered Sagittarius. It took me like 15 minutes to do the intro to my video, and I just kept trying to do it. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Of course, look at the skies, and I'm like, Mercury square Saturn right now. I can't even find the right words. Like, I'm losing notes. What am I doing? And I just couldn't help but laugh. So we ended up turning it into like a blooper, and you see like me, trying to do the whole intro, and I just couldn't find the words. After that happened, I took a step back and I was like, okay, Mercury's the messenger. Like, Mercury's basically telling me that, like, in this area of my life, I don't have my shit together. So ironic that it was Mercury in my third house, which is about doing videos, and Saturn was in my sixth house, and I didn't have the right time. And I also had been feeling the time crunch. So I'm looking at this going like, rather than rushing through my Sagittarius stuff, I'm really looking at Saturn, being like, Saturn, what do I need to be doing to better kind of structuring my time, or how can I, make better use of my time so I'm not feeling this crunch? Go back, look at what happened when Mercury squared Saturn this last week. That was the message to let you know that you're going to be having some speed bumps as you see both the Sun and Mars come into a square this week. Now, there is some positive, right? The positive, especially because we've got this in a superior position because it's squaring from the right-hand side, is that we can take disciplined action. Saturn is going to, obviously lay down and tell you, how to do something and how to do it correctly. It can help you work through the tension, but also it can serve as like a motivator for being disciplined and using more focus when it comes to taking action. So you can use this energy this week to channel your drive into well thought out plans or strategies. So don't get frustrated, right? Don't get agitated. Sit down, come up with a plan, and ask yourself, what are you not seeing that you could see more so clearly, so that way you're better prepared. This is going to allow us to better, plan and strategize. So it will require us to use a little bit more careful planning and consideration, and recognize that there can be long-term consequences if we're getting a little too heated or we're rushing through something. And also, this is about utilizing the tension to develop well-structured strategic approaches to being able to overcome our goals. Part of that is listening to this video, because I'm going to be like, hey, this is what's going on this week. And you're going to go, oh, okay, I need to get prepared early, or I need to kind of plan my week out in advance. That'll help you so much this week overcome some of the challenges with Saturn. For me, Saturn Mars squares, I think about it was 2021, while Mars was, when it was in Aquarius, actually, when was it 2021 or 2022? 2022. I had Saturn square my Mars basically in that year. And I was like, man, this sucks. But I realized that it taught me that I had to keep working and trying to produce something. I couldn't just rush it, and that the long-term goal ultimately was going to beat out and probably better perform any short-term goal that I had. So it taught me a lot about balancing, for me, freedom and responsibility, and when it was time to, you know, kind of charge ahead and have fun, and when it was time to kind of scale things back, and how to be able to have fun in a responsible manner, I guess. So you might see that, you know, that might be coming up for you guys, especially with Sagittarius, you know, finding a healthy balance between the desire of freedom and responsibility. It can also prompt you to integrate these seemingly opposing forces and lead to a much more sustainable and harmonious approach to your endeavors. Now, focused energy is possible, right? We can override the agitation rather than feeling scattered, which we can kind of sometimes see with mutable squares. It is possible to rein that in, because Saturn will encourage us to focus and have a much more concentrated effort. So use this to prioritize your goals and direct them in a way that you feel truly matters. This will help build solid foundations. It's going to help teach patience. And it's all about using a much more strategic approach. So keep that in mind all week as you're sitting at a light a little bit longer, right? Or as you're getting detoured because of traffic, or you're having to go back over something several times before you print it or before you send it off. Just give like Saturn a nod and be like, okay, I appreciate it, because he's looking out. He's looking out for the things that you may not potentially see. All right, so let's get into the week ahead. We're going to start today with Sunday the 19th. We wake up and the moon is in Aquarius. So if you guys remember last week, I was like, watch out for Sunday. Sunday night gets a little hectic. That's because we have a building fixed square between the moon and all these planets in Scorpio. We are in the last throes of Scorpio season. So it's going to kind of go out with a bang as the moon moves through Aquarius, which is social, fun, free, you know, wanting to hang out, connect with people. The moon is going to square Uranus, which is its dispositor. Can you tell that I'm already experiencing the squares? It's dispositor. The moon's going to square Uranus, so we're going to feel a little emotionally destabilized, or there is a sense of something kind of changing in regards to our values, our resources, or our friendships. And as the moon continues to go through Aquarius, it's then going to pick up a square to the sun and Mars. So the latter part of Sunday, the evening, tonight, a little tricky. The one positive is that as the moon goes through Aquarius, it is going to start picking up a sextile to the North Node. So you might kind of feel like you're like, I'm going to go my own way, or I'm going to do my own thing. I'm focusing more on, you know, like what's going to make me feel the most supported, or where I'm going to be able to be around people who are going to be, like, you know, having a good time and celebrating and doing the things that I want to do. So when we get Aries and Aquarius together, Aries is the individual and Aquarius is the group. Could be great for like goal setting as well. But down the road, later this evening, when we pick up the moon square, Mars and the sun, it feels a little discombobulated. It does feel like we can't do everything at one time. We're feeling a little short on time as well. So be mindful that Sunday night plans may not necessarily go according to plan. Okay, so I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's just the way it goes. Overnight, as we're going into Monday the 20th, we are going to see early morning. The moon will make that square to Mars and the sun. P.S. Mars and the sun are going to keep moving side by side until the end of November. So clear until the 30th. Even as these two planets ingress into Sagittarius, they're close by. So it's hot. We're feeling the heat. And that square is going to be very early morning. I'm on Central, so if you're on East Coast and you're an early riser, maybe you're feeling that square. Things might feel a little discombobulated even into the morning. Now, in the morning time, we're going to see the moon's ingress into Pisces, so very different energy. The moon immediately comes into contact with Saturn, where we're reflecting, we're sensitive, we're a little bit more tuned in, empathic. We're absorbing things, right? So we're going to feel some sort of emotional shift, or maybe even like a release or a dissolving. When the moon's in Pisces, we are going to be feeling like we need more privacy, or we need a quiet space, or we need to kind of pause and reflect. So take note of that in the morning. It might be important to take a little time to meditate, take a few minutes by yourself, maybe a little bit longer time in the bathtub or in the shower, to be able to have some alone time to reflect and kind of check in with your higher self. We're going to start seeing the Sun and Mars getting into the later degrees here as well. And we're going to start to see the Sun in Scorpio come into a sextile with Pluto. So that's working hard, I think, to make big changes and transformations when it comes to the way that we look at our careers, our responsibility, or power. So I like this sextile. You know, I really started feeling it yesterday or actually 2 days ago when the moon was in Capricorn, where I was like, whoa, what's going on? When that moon was in Capricorn on Friday, and it was like coming into contact with, trines with planets in Taurus, and yeah, just this sextile is just, it's booming with lots of energy to get work done. So even in spite of the moon conjunct Saturn, I do feel like we have a lot of support here with the Sun and Mars coming into a sextile with Pluto. So we can get a lot of work done behind the scenes in private. We can be very goal-oriented. And the Sun and Mars are still very, very, very close by. So we're feeling like we're like the Energizer Bunny. All right, so the moon's going to keep going through Pisces all day long. We're not going to see much else happen here other than in the PM hours, we're going to start to see Mercury pick up a trine to Chiron, okay? So this trine, Mercury, the mind, communication, ideas, obviously Mercury and Sag, the bigger picture, is making a trine to Chiron. So maybe we kind of get some sense of awareness, or we're tapping into learning about healing ourselves, or learning about accepting ourselves or loving ourselves, and what we've learned from having some time alone. Has nothing to do with Pisces, but I feel like that's really complementary to the moon and Saturn in conjunction. And we might feel like we're a little bit more tapped in with our higher self if we're taking time to kind of pause and reflect. So now we're going to be going to Tuesday the 21st. And as we do that, we're waking up in the morning. There we go. And the moon is still in Pisces. We have got a moon square Mercury. Okay. It can be difficult in communications, especially because, the moon kind of sandwiched between Pisces and Saturn. We probably are doing our Pisces stuff. We are spending a little bit more time, daydreaming or sleeping in, or we are feeling like a little reclusive, or maybe we're feeling like we aren't ready to, talk about something, or we're releasing or letting something go. There can also be this feeling that there is something telling us that we need a little bit more time before we're ready to kind of communicate or discuss something. Be very careful with trying to make sense of emotions and like talking about emotions, because having the moon square Mercury, especially when it's in Sag, it feels like some people are going to have a lot to say and other people are going to be like, checked out. They're going to be kind of ghosty. So don't expect a lot from communication on Tuesday. Not the best time for serious conversations or early morning meetings. It feels like a lot of people are going to be kind of spaced out. And unfortunately, sometimes when we see the moon in Pisces, people are more likely to drink or to, participate in recreational drugs, or people are experiencing situations where they're self-undoing or they're kind of hiding away. So it's not going to make it great for communication. I would say take note of whatever is going on the 21st, because this can start to kind of show you what the energy of the Mercury retrograde is going to be about, when Mercury is like, I've got all these ideas, and then like Pisces is like, I didn't see your email and I missed the deadline. These are the kinds of things that we can see. All right, so we go now later into the 21st. We are going to start to pick up, what else? I think that's pretty much it, actually. The sun's going to be in the late degrees of Scorpio. Mars is in late degrees of Scorpio. Pretty much it. We're not going to see much else other than that. So you'll see the square that's going to happen midday between the moon and Mercury. So watch for those miscommunications. And then in the evening, we're going to start to see the moon come into contact with Neptune. So Tuesday night, music, film, movies, design, art, metaphysical things. I like the moon coming into contact with Neptune because it's going to start to form a trine with these planets in Scorpio in the late degrees. It can be a wonderful time for, metaphysical things in general, dream work, right? Hypnosis, especially if you're trying to combat trauma or you're trying to kind of kick a bad habit. I talked in previous videos about how it's a really good time to quit smoking, or it's a really good time to cut things out. So if you're trying to get rid of, sugar or a bad habit, or you're trying to overcome heartbreak, I really recommend using hypnosis or like listening to some kind of like hypnosis tapes or something as you're going to sleep. So you might want to try doing that on Tuesday night if you're really feeling like you're having a hard time letting go. Sun and Mars in the late degree of Scorpio is like the death grip. So a little bit of water, a little bit of music, some meditation, or hypnosis can definitely kind of help you kick that habit to the curb. So then on the 22nd, which is Wednesday, early in the AM, we're going to see the moon leave Pisces and it's going to go into Aries. And we're also going to see the sun go into Sagittarius. So it looks like closer to late morning, afternoon, depending on where you are, the sun and moon are going to change signs at the same time. So we go from like the last degrees of Pisces and Scorpio, which are like really emotional, very sensitive, to 0 degrees sun in Sag and 0 degrees moon in Aries. You're going to feel that shift pretty dramatically on Wednesday midday. Maybe this is when you're like realizing like, oh, I didn't need that second cup of coffee, or like, I don't need the energy drink. I'm feeling kind of like things are picking up. So maybe save some of your best work for after lunch. When the sun and the moon are in a trine with each other, they're able to work in harmony and we're able to see things come together. Fire trines are about action and passion and desire and creativity and adventure. So I'm actually kind of liking that shift. Obviously, as we go through Sagittarius season, we're going to be focusing a lot on Jupiter, and Jupiter is in a sign that is 6 signs away from Sagittarius. So it's going to be really highlighting themes like health, scheduling, productivity, our habits, things like that. And Jupiter is still retrograde, so it will be retrograde until the new year. And we'll see a couple quincunxes are in conjuncts to Jupiter as well. But for right now, I'm liking mid-Wednesday. Now, something else what we're going to see, we will experience Venus make an opposition to Chiron. And this is kind of important because we see 2 really significant transits happening on Wednesday, both with Mars and Venus. So Mars being that ruler of the North Node, helping kind of direct us and show us where we need to take charge. It's sextiling Pluto. So similar to when we had a sextile between the Sun and Mars, the Sun and Pluto, now we have Mars and Pluto. So sextiles are friendly energies. They are 60 degrees. It basically means if you're taking action in the Scorpio area, it's helping empower or change or transform the Capricorn area of your chart. And that's a really powerful sextile because you've got Mars and Pluto, which both have associations with Scorpio. So take action, see change. That's basically how that's going to work. And we've got Venus, which is the South Node ruler. So it represents kind of karmic past, where we've been, what we're letting go of, what we're kind of tapping into also from past lives or from past experiences. Venus is making an opposition to Chiron. Now, will you feel it? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I think it'll be more so in like words because it'll be at a 15. But because Venus represents opening up to love, relationships, compatibility, working together, diplomacy, and Venus is in opposition to Chiron, which is about, healing wounds. Likely what you'll see the 22nd, even the 23rd when the moon shows up, is that there is this feeling of separation, right? Oppositions can be about something outside of ourselves. And so Venus in opposition to Chiron is where we feel like relationships, money, resources, support is far away, or when other people are not always available, it really encourages us or puts the pressure on us to do our own healing work. So what you'll find is that I have a feeling with the sun coming into a square with Saturn, where we're like, you know, somebody says to you, figure it out, or I'm not available right now, you know, do it yourself, or I can't get back to you. Then the Venus Chiron opposition kicks in and you're like, oh, my heart, you know, what do you mean that you're not making time for me? How am I supposed to deal with this by myself? And there could be some hurt feelings. So that square won't take place until the next day, but those of you guys who, you know, have any personal planets in the Aries, Libra axis, you might feel this a little bit more strongly. And it can represent like the pain of separation or somebody being at a distance. But it's very interesting because really what it's showing us is really the true, I think, medicine of the South Node in Libra, the North Node in Aries. South Node in Libra is about ripping away anything superficial in relationships. It's about getting out of indecisiveness. It's about cutting, you know, loose relationships that don't serve us. It's about getting out of codependency in relationships. As Venus comes into contact with the South Node, it's like amplifying that. And you'll see that more so next week. And then we've got the North Node in Aries, which is about, you know, empowerment and being self-sufficient and being brave and courageous and independent. And so with that North Node conjunct Chiron, you know, we have to be brave enough to work on our own wounds or heal ourselves or go our own way. And if doing that and standing up for ourselves or doing that and protecting ourselves drives other people away, then those may be relationships that weren't in alignment to begin with. And, you know, love in relationships of any kind, right? People are going to grow together, or they're going to grow apart. So the more that you're doing your due diligence to work on yourself and you're answering your own call this week of, okay, what am I learning through this? Or maybe I have some time away from a partner and I'm traveling, right, Sag? Or I'm, you know, going back to school and we're going to, you know, now be apart. It can be a little bit of like, you know, separation makes us a little bit more fonder of other people. So it is possible to have that time or that space. And then it creates almost more of a charge where it's like, okay, the right relationships will weather the storm. We'll get through this and we'll kind of come back together. So depends on your situation. But I just think that that's really interesting that we're seeing two really strong things at the same time. All right, so then we're going to watch the moon continue to go through Aries. And pretty much that's it. So that's going to take us into the 23rd. And when we wake up in the morning, the moon is still in Aries. It's in opposition to Venus. So probably you're really feeling like what you're wanting, what you're craving, right? For many of you guys who celebrate, this is Thanksgiving, this is Turkey Day, so you're like, oh, I really want this thing that hits the spot. So I could imagine there's like a lot of like last minute, like, did you forget the pie? Like phone calls, right? Anybody who brings goods to Thanksgiving, that's probably your biggest fear is, you know, getting 100 miles somewhere and then you're like, oh my God, I forgot this thing. So I could see that with Venus in opposition to the moon. Anyway, as the moon's in Aries, we're feeling daring, energized, independent, athletic, motivated. We're running around, we're doing stuff. And the moon's coming into contact with Chiron, which means there's definitely going to be some people who are feeling like the black sheep of the family. I will join you with that this year. But it's okay, it's fine. You know, I think with the moon's trine to Mercury, I could see a lot of people who are you know, traveling on their own to go and do something different for the holiday, or maybe they're deciding that they're going to go and have like Friendsgiving. They're maybe doing something very different than what they would typically do. But with the moon conjunct Chiron, we're feeling a little bit emotionally sensitive. We're recognizing and realizing that we're on our own when it comes to tending to things. And that moon in opposition to Venus, I think, is a longing for, you know, family, relationship, you know, togetherness. So there's probably going to be some people who are going to go, I would, you know, fly back home this year if I could, but I can't. I've got this and I've got that. Or financial constraints that are, you know, keeping us from being able to be with other people. So it's not just because it's the holiday. There is a connection to the astrology, and some people might be reflecting and reminiscing on family they had, relationships they had, and feeling like it's at a bit of a distance, right? And also like some wicked sweet cravings. So I could definitely see some people that are like getting kicked out of the kitchen because they're going after what they want and getting slapped with a spatula by mom. Very Mars Chiron in Aries. All right, so that moon is going to do its thing. It's going to make its opposition. We will also see early in the morning on the 23rd, the sun will square Saturn. So this is the second planet to square Saturn. Like I said, we saw Mercury do it earlier. I promise you guys, I am not a weather woman, but I know my astrology. You're going to see some wild astrology this week, guys, okay? When the sun squares Saturn, when it's in the sign of airplanes, we will see delays. That's just what happens, okay? And the mutable signs is weather. Actual physical travel and digital things and documents and paperwork and systems, that's more Mercury. And Mercury is also coming into a square with Neptune. So be mindful when it comes to travel plans, when it comes to travel advisories, weather advisories, all kinds of stuff. I could definitely see the sun square Saturn as being like, okay, I have, we still haven't landed, or, we're going to be running a little bit late. So do expect some delays that are going to be taking place on Thursday. All right, so then throughout the day, you're not going to see much else happen. You will see the moon in Aries pick up a trine to Mercury. So that's about destiny calling, I think, especially with the moon so close to the North Node. There can be a lot of people who are like, I can only imagine, I think back to like when I was on a flight. I'm trying to remember where I was coming back from. I think I was recently coming back from Mexico, and I think I flew into an area in Texas and then had to get to San Antonio. I think I flew into like Houston or Dallas, and I was listening to this woman tell the story about how she had her plane was like pushed back, all of her flights. And it should have been like a 3-hour flight, but she's like, I've literally been in the air for over 16 hours, just going from airport to airport, experiencing delays. And she stood up and she went, does anybody want to rent a car and drive with me to where I'm going, right? Because she's just like, screw this, I'm not going to sit on this plane. Anyway, reminds me of this, the North Node and the moon in Aries, like, I'm going to find my own way, here I go. And then the trine to Mercury. So if you're in a situation where you're experiencing travel delays, or there's some kind of setback, or whatever, a little bit of motivation and the willingness to be adventurous and kind of go a different path, or be a little bit more adventurous, could definitely be coming up for you on Thursday evening. And I also think it could be for some interesting and insightful conversation. I mean, as much as I gave the Mercury in Sag video a bit of a hard time, yes, it's starting to come into a square with Neptune, so you're probably going to see some intoxicated relatives that are going to be just talking some really crazy, ignorant shit. But by the same token, Mercury in Sag is hilarious, right? It's like you can always spot somebody who's a Sag rising, or Mercury in Sag, or Mercury in the ninth house, because they have this like shit-eating grin on their face as they're like telling you, spitting facts to your face. So I like that Mercury is going to trine with the North Node in Aries, because I do feel like it's going to be for some awesome storytelling. It's going to be also really amazing for communicating and speaking your mind, and talking to younger people and encouraging people and opening up the dialogue for really important discussions that we're really passionate about. But yeah, the Mercury square Neptune. You're also going to see some slurred speech. So it doesn't even need to be said, but definitely be careful also throughout this week as that square is building, because you're going to see some issues with people who are going to be experiencing problems with intoxication and driving and extreme weather conditions, because visibility is a big issue whenever we see anything in the mutable signs, okay? Right here. All right, so this is now going into Friday. This is going to be the 24th. And this is the day that we're going to see Mars enter into Sagittarius. So that'll be happening early in the morning. Now Sun and Mars are in Sag, so they're close together, super spicy, really adamant about, kind of getting somewhere. The exact square to Saturn won't be yet, but I feel from the second the sun ingresses into Sag, you're going to see from Wednesday until, let's say, Saturday, Sunday, the Sun and the Mars conjunction square Saturn is delayed. So we're seeing these delays in some capacity. I think that with Mars entering Sag, you know, at the very least, like I said, optimism is going to be a key. I'm feeling like with the square to Saturn, really what it's saying is that if we really want to be able to get the big picture, in order to see everything, to understand everything, to be able to really have a plan, an action plan for where we're going, there is a need to confront or combat what has been kind of lurking in the shadows, what's been withheld, what's been hiding, what's been, things that have been intentionally withheld, information that's been withheld. But there can also be showing us where Sagittarian type of people are speaking up against limitation or against tyranny or, you know, against anything that is actually separating, isolating, or dividing us, because that's very Saturn and Pisces. That's very Saturn and Neptune. So I'm on the lookout for some of these, protesters with a good cause that are not just out there, that are blindly following certain narratives, people who are out there who are not wanting to fight, they're wanting to educate. That's the difference between Mars in Aries and Mars in Sag. Unless you got Mars in Aries in the 9th house, Mars in Sagittarius says, let's get out there with a megaphone and let's go and educate some people. Mars in Aries just wants to tape up their hands and they just want to duke it out. So what's cool about this is that I'm really looking forward to like debates. I'm looking forward to a lot of these philosophical debates, a lot of these cultural debates. And I feel like there is definitely going to be some really educated, inspirational people who are going to kind of make the scene, who are going to be challenging authority for good reason, not to just cause a ruckus, but because they really want to expose and show people what's really going on behind the scenes. Early morning, we will start to see the moon come into a square with Pluto. So those emotional intensity feelings are on the rise. We are having issues with authority, power, manipulation, and control with that square to Pluto. And then we're going to start to see the moon drop into Taurus, and that's going to be in the later hours. So when the moon comes out of a square with Pluto, it drops into Taurus in the afternoon. We slow down, we get comfortable, we relax a little bit, we focus more on Venus. Not the easiest thing to do, because the moon starts coming into an inconjunct with the sun and Mars. So something feels like out of place in some way, or, you know, out of sync. And we're watching Venus that's starting to come into contact with the South Node. So it's not your stereotypical kind of like ingress into Sagittarius season. Nevertheless, when the moon's in Taurus, you know, we feel secure, comfortable. We're focusing on money, resources, values. I just think of like indulgence, right? I'm thinking about a lot of people that are going to have a lot of leftover or excess resources or excess food the day after the holiday. I also think about how Jupiter is about wanting to do good things for other people. I'm really hoping that people are like donating, dedicating, giving time, giving service to others. I think that that's something that is such an amazing way to utilize this conjunction in the inconjunct or the quincunx. Some of you guys may not be working, so this might be a day where you're like, I'm lounging. You know, Jupiter and the moon is very, you know, getting in your comfies, hanging out, having your leftovers, being with your family, doing your sloth work for the day. That might definitely come up. After all, when Venus is close to the South Node, sometimes we do like to indulge. But yeah, definitely slow down. And it's a very different tempo than that Sun Mars in Sagittarius. This is trying to get you to chill. All right, so then that's pretty much Friday in a nutshell. We go into Saturday, and overnight the moon and Jupiter have been in conjunction. And then we get into the morning on Saturday, the 25th. And this is where you pull out your big red Sharpie and you circle on your calendar, Mercury shadow starts today. So you have a couple options, okay? Because Mercury shadow starts today, you technically are before the retrograde, which is not going to be until mid-December, so you have time. I'm going to do a video on that soon. You can either wait until Mercury goes into Capricorn, which will be in the next week. And when it goes into Capricorn, we're going to actually see it go all the way up to 8 degrees. So it will trine Jupiter. So my advice is don't be making any stupid decisions. Just make a note that the Mercury retrograde shadow is going to begin now. It's important because you're going to see in this shadow that Mercury is going to square Neptune, which means part of the retrograde is like, oh, I didn't see that, or I didn't get all the facts, or I wasn't aware, or you didn't tell me, or it went missing. And we're going to have to go back over something. We're going to have to do that regardless. But if you want to avoid the pitfalls of a Mercury retrograde problem, either A, get your Mercury stuff done, prior to Saturday, earlier in the week, or B, wait until Mercury gets into Capricorn in this next week, makes a trine to Jupiter, do your stuff then before the retrograde begins. But be mindful, when the shadow happens, sometimes the shadow really kicks the pre and the post shadow. This is going to be one that's going to kick. We're going to see squares to Neptune on both ends. We're going to see a conjunction to Mars when we see the retrograde happen. It's going to be wild, y'all. So just be mindful that Mercury's tricks are going to happen, and there could be things that go missing, misunderstood, mistranslated. The list goes on, and watch out for those tall tales because that's definitely going to be a theme during this Mercury retrograde. I want to read to you guys the Sabian symbol, and I'm going to be reading to you guys 22 because it's retrograding back to 22. Oh no, I take that back. I'm reading to you guys 23. Hello. It's going to retrograde back to 22, and I'm reading to you guys 23. And I best believe I about fell out of my chair when I read this, laughing, because you literally cannot make this stuff up. Okay, so with the Sabian symbols, we round up. So it's going to be 22 where the shadow begins. And I'm reading to you guys 23, which is page 297. And the title is Immigrants Entering. The keyword is entrance. The theme is trying something new. The symbol speaks to the recognition of opportunity and the willingness to risk or leave the safe and familiar in hopes of finding greater freedom and meaning in life. The image of immigrants entering dramatizes the importance of being able to let go and detach from any situation that offers no further potential or growth for creative expression or reestablish self in friendlier surroundings. On a practical level, the image symbolizes new beginnings and a new experience in unfamiliar territory. It suggests here that trial and error period of learning and orientation is just around the corner. At its highest, the symbol represents adaptability and the courage to start over when any present situation proves unprofitable or unworkable. Watch for giving up too easily or grass is greener on the other side philosophy. The accent is on closing the door in the past and opening wide the gateway to the future. You may sense that it's time to pull up roots and make a change. Your greatest advantage lies in finding the environment that offers the greatest support for your potential. Be willing to endure some hardships while reestablishing yourself. Guard against the chasing will-o'-the-wisps. Don't give up what you have for the unknown that simply sounds or appears to be better. Stepping stones are influx, pioneering, foreigners, strangers, reestablishment, resettlement, uprooting, reorientation, entrance, hope, and aspiration. Sometimes the Sabian symbols are literal. Immigrants entering. Wow. I will talk more about that in the Mercury retrograde video, but definitely Mercury being about communications, documents, paperwork, ideas, systems, and then the square to Neptune is going to be like, what's going on? Is there any sense of organization or clarity? How are people immigrating? Where are they coming from? Do they have IDs? How did they get here? What is the system that they go through to be able to get here? And obviously 22 degrees is a degree that deals with government. Okay, so it's the government, oversight in this process. A retrograde, I always liken to like looking in the rearview mirror and looking back at the sign, actually in the house that was behind it. So if we look at Sagittarius, which is big, broad, international, traveling, Scorpio represents what it costs. Some of the stuff that's coming out here in the United States is absolutely unreal. We're hearing that there is apparently incoming budget cuts in New York City for education as well as for the New York Police Department as a result of continuing, fees revolving around immigration in the city. So I think we're going to hear more like, oh, are we walking back or reviewing or making changes or going back on some of the decisions that we've made about immigration? But it also could be about what politicians are saying, right? Because it's at 22, or what leaders are saying, or the regulations or the limitations, or, you know, should we make it more challenging? Do some places make it easier? We'll have to see. But it's interesting that this goes hand in hand with the Sun and Mars square Saturn, which is literally people charging or trying to force or push their way in past borders, walls, or limitations. Certainly we're going to hear more about the legal fight revolving around the southern border, and it's been interesting living in Texas myself. I haven't been there, but following the storyline and hearing how Texas basically was like, screw you guys, we're going to do this ourselves, and has just started rebuilding the wall. Whether you agree with it or not, I think the astrology is a prime example of where people are making moves and taking action if there are situations where leaders or leadership are nowhere to be found. Saturn in Pisces is a lot of like emperor has no clothes situation. We're going to realize that a lot of leaders, institutions, you know, people who we've put a lot of faith and really given a lot of power to are nowhere to be found. So some of this Sun-Mars conjunction can be very pioneering, where it's just like, I'm going to step up and do something because nothing's being done in this area. But it's interesting that it was literally talking about immigration and people who are going to places thinking it was going to be better. I can only look at the situation and feel sorry for some of the people who have come here thinking that they're coming and potentially going to have a better life, only to find out that a lot of what they've been told is not true. A lot of what they've been promised is not real. It is the illusion of safety and security. It is the illusion of care, right? So you might be told you're going to be moving to a better place, but do you actually have somewhere safe? Do you have a job? Do you have resources? Likely, it's probably very different. And from what I understand, just reading some accounts of people who have actually come here, when you ask them, would you do it again? A lot of them would say, probably not. It was dangerous. It was challenging, especially moving with family members. Very, very unsafe, but also situations where you don't really know where you're going to land, and then getting here realizing that it's not really necessarily what you told it was going to be. Prime example of this particular square. So I'm interested to kind of see what comes out with some of that stuff. Watch your mouth, please. All those Sagittariuses that are going to be feeling extra spicy in terms of their communication. Be mindful that there can be things that you could say that you can't really walk back. Now, Mercury retrograde in general, things that we say or write or whatever can come back to kind of bite us in the ass, right? Or it can come back from the past. But with Mercury square Neptune that's building, I want you guys to know that there is a confusing, something is missing, you know, kind of fibbing, fabricating, misrepresenting, lying. Things that go down during this particular square will come back up. And you're going to see that more, I think, when it comes back into the conjunction with Mars, where we're going to find out that there was some falsified information or misleading things that were said, or like trying to make things sound better than it really did. Be very careful for, you know, over scheduling yourself, because there could be a lot of over promising, under delivering, and a lot of people are going to look around and go, didn't you say you were going to do this, 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 and this? And we can also find that there's just a lot of excuses that are being made for the things that we didn't get done. So be mindful of that. In the early hours, you'll see that Moon-Jupiter conjunction, which feels sweet, but we start to lose it as the day goes on, and we continue to see the Moon in disharmony with Mercury, and eventually comes into a conjunction with Uranus. So there is some emotional destabilizing things happening in the PM hours. We are finding it more difficult to communicate and relate, especially over financial or physical matters. So things feel a little disjointed on the evening of Saturday. And then this is going to take us into Sunday, the 26th. We wake up in the morning, the moon's still in Taurus. It's now sextiling Neptune, so we're feeling a little bit more so grounded, a little bit more tapped in, sensitive, creative. And the moon is going to start coming into a trine with Pluto. So pretty powerful morning on tap. We've got Venus, which we're looking at because that is the ruler of the moon. And Venus is going to make an inconjunct to Uranus and the moon, so it doesn't feel totally pleased. And it's reactivating that recent solar eclipse that we had in Libra last month. So you might see more effects revolving around the Libra eclipse. That Venus is getting real close to the South Node. So some of us might be reminiscing about the past, hearing from the past, like reflecting on what we like loved and let go. And there definitely is a theme when Venus is on the South Node of losing something. So that factored in with the moon Uranus, I feel like a lot of people are probably going to be paying attention and watching potentially what's going on with the markets, and some of the market patterns that are going to be, you know, kind of happening on Monday, the 27th. Now, as we continue to go throughout the day, we will see the moon eventually shift into Gemini, coming into that full moon energy. We're going to have a full moon that's going to be on the 27th, so very early in the morning on Monday. So if there's any takeaway, do your full moon stuff on Sunday night, because overnight while you're sleeping, that's when we're going to have the full moon. In the PM hours, the moon is going to move into Gemini, so we're coming into the full moon, which will eventually be at 4 degrees. And this is tricky because we're going to see the moon first square Saturn, then oppose Mars, so it's very agitated. It's like, this thing is happening, and it's like, wait, what's happening? And then we see the moon square Saturn, where it's hard for us to emotionally respond or to react. And obviously when we have the full moon in Gemini, we're paying attention to Mercury. Mercury's in shadow and it's square Neptune. So this is telling me that there's a lot of people who are very reactionary, really kind of fired up. Everybody's talking about something because it's a Gemini moon. We're feeling very chatty, but we're also feeling like there are people who are shutting down the conversation. There's limitations on communication. There is inability to be able to communicate. There's people who are getting angry and they're not really communicating effectively because Sun and Mars can be extremely in Sagittarius, like holier than thou. That can happen. And we've got Mercury that's square Neptune. So if you guys haven't seen my my full moon in Gemini video, check it out. I talk about all of the cultural and the religious and philosophical, you know, conflicts that are going on, that really it's going to be a lot of people who are, I think, blindly pledging allegiance to things or belief systems or cultures or religions that they don't totally understand. There can definitely be a lot of misunderstandings and miscommunications. And obviously, when that happens, everybody gets heated and everybody loses. And so that's been the epitome, really, of what we've been dealing with, I think, for the better part of like the last 2 months. There's just been a lot of that happening. And so when I did that video, I talk about how this particular full moon was seated 6 months ago when we had a very similar square to Saturn and also square to Neptune. It reminds me of that meme with Spider-Man where they're both like pointing at each other. They're like, I didn't do it, you did it. And it's like you're both blaming each other for the same thing that you're doing. There's a mirrored effect that kind of goes on here, where, you know, nobody's really aware of their own pitfalls and everybody wants to blame the other person, and people are kind of, yeah, just projecting onto other people. As the South Node gets, you know, close in proximity to Venus, we're going to find it harder to be diplomatic. So I think that's part of this as well. So take that into consideration. You know, maybe go and watch that full moon video so that way you're kind of prepared, so you know what's coming. Slow your roll, pump the brakes when necessary all week long. It pays to be prepared. I'm already looking at next week and I'm like, how do I have enough time to do everything? So I'm experiencing it like you. I would like to take you guys quickly through the 12 rising signs just to show you where this is going to be taking place. So you're aware of where both Mars and the Sun are ingressing into, bringing a lot of power and motivation. But remember, you're going to get checked by Saturn. So either those actions you're taking in Sagittarius land is pushing Saturn out of its comfort zone, it's getting it out of the water, or you're going to be feeling like you're being told, hold on, stop, take your time, don't rush. So you got to look at both of those aspects. Aries, Scorpio, and Sagittarius risings, okay? Aries and Scorpio, you're ruled by Mars. You're the faster moving planet. You are likely going to be the ones doing the pushing or doing the work or the shit disturbing, right? Maybe that's going to be the Sag risings. Then we're going to have Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So because we have Saturn that rules Capricorn and Aquarius, you're receiving the square from Mars. You might feel a little bit under the gun. And we're also going to possibly, for Pisces risings, be feeling the pressure a little bit as well. Because this square is going to be taking place from about 0 to, let's say, 2 degrees of the mutables, 0 to 2 degrees of my Geminis, my Virgos, my Sagittariuses, and my Pisces, you guys are really going to be feeling this pretty strongly. If you have any personal planets there, pay attention. And obviously, happy Sagittarius season. This is like definitely, it's like kicking the door open, but I wouldn't expect any less from Sagittarius placements myself. So let's make this whole sign. Let me take you guys through this really quick, and I want to tell you where this will be taking place. All right, so we're going to start with Aries and Aries rising. As a reminder, I'm a Western astrologer, so I practice Western astrology. I'm going to do this for whole sign. If you want, you can do this for whole sign because both the Sun and Mars are going to enter 0 degrees. If you want to do Placidus, that's fine. Just look for those degrees in your chart and listen for your Sun, your Moon, and your rising sign. All of those apply, okay? All right, so let's get to this. We've got Aries and Aries rising. You've got Mars changing signs, so this is important for you. Why? Well, because Mars rules your chart, so it rules you, your actions, and your body. So wherever Mars goes, that's where you go. Mars also has connections and associations to Scorpio, so it's about joint resources, change, and transformation. So you've got Mars and the Sun that are moving into your natal 9th house. Personally, you know, this is the house that Sagittarius is the most comfortable in. So, you know, having Mars, your ruler, going through there, I feel like is going to add a little bit more of an extra punch. When we see these two planets move through this house, I think that this is going to make you more so passionate about travel, higher education, and any, you know, philosophical pursuits. Likely this can be about traveling for holiday because the Sun is there, traveling for pleasure, traveling with kids or to see children, or something in regards to long distance travel with a romantic partner, or maybe even like sussing out schools or education, because I noticed that Mercury is there as well. Now, both the Sun and Mars will come into a square with Saturn, which means there can be some unexpected circumstances, some delays, some setbacks. When I think international travel, I think of Pisces and Sagittarius. So if you're traveling by air, you're traveling internationally, you may find that there is a bit of a delay or maybe a setback in kind of getting to where you need to go. I'm thinking about that full moon in Gemini, and make sure you have all of your documents, okay? It's very important that you have that this week. And if you're not traveling by air, make sure you have your ID, make sure you have all of your documents and your paperwork in your car. Make sure you don't leave your phone somewhere or a gadget somewhere, because I could see rushing to kind of get somewhere and then something kind of gets overlooked, okay? So hopefully that's helpful for you. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. You're going to be experiencing both the Sun and Mars entering into your 8th house. This is all about joint resources and passion, and also intimacy. As Mars, the planet that rules your relationships and your deep subconscious drives, go into your 8th house, you might notice that there's much more energy, you know, to pursue some kind of transformation or some like deep experience that you have maybe with a partnership or another person. This might be a time where you're feeling the push to really explore something that you're passionate about. It can be things that are esoteric or taboo, because the 8th house are those things. It might be something that you're doing with a partner. So I think because Mars is involved, it might mean that there's just more passion and intimacy between you and another person. And also just doing a lot of deep soul exploring. Remember that you're going to experience a square to Saturn. So it is possible that you know, you are feeling really passionate, but there is some kind of challenge or delay revolving around your goals, maybe with another person. It is also possible that there can be some challenges revolving around meeting some of your financial goals as well. You're going to have that full moon that's going to be in your 2nd house of money. And I feel like what's kind of going on is that there's like a need for you to really reassess your goals and consider another person and be like, look, what can we do so we both win? How can we come together on something and overcome something? And also, this is about having access to other people's resources. So spending money is the 2nd house. Loans and debt or paying things back is the 8th house. So there can be a sense of having to pay stuff down or having to pay bills down. It can definitely kind of hinder or throw a bit of a monkey wrench into some of your social plans, okay? Good luck, Taurus. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You will be experiencing both Mars and the Sun going into Sagittarius in your natal 7th house of relationships. Now, this is a real interesting time for you, especially if you're an early degree Gemini, Sun, Moon, or Rising. As Mars and the Sun enter into your 7th house, you're going to notice that there is just a lot of enthusiasm, relationship action, assertiveness that's being directed towards partnerships, or you're feeling that from other people. Those of you guys who are in a relationship, there might be a lot of like adventure and exploring and having fun. And those of you guys who are single and you're looking to meet somebody, it is a very significant relationship time. Mercury, your chart ruler, is also in your 7th house, and it will retrograde. So likely those of you guys who are single might be coming into a period where you might be destined to connect with someone. Someone from the past might come back. You might be making a decision about a relationship. Sometimes, Mars square Saturn is the sacrifice, and it can materialize as being like, I got to take this action and cut this thing off. So it is possible that relationships are really pushing you to really start thinking about some of the decisions that you're making in other areas of your life, or your career, or your status. So you might be getting a little bit of pressure from a partner or a client or another person to make some significant shift at work or in regards to your public image. So somebody who's pushing you to be like, let's get married, let's commit, let's change that status, that can come up. Now, the square to Saturn does seem to kind of indicate that there is a need to really take your time. So I could also see this materializing in a professional sense, where when it comes to working with a new client, or maybe, taking on a new partnership or collaboration, there might be a sense of being a little hesitant and wanting to make sure that it's the right person to work with, and that you're going to maintain some sense of control. Now, you're going to have a Mercury retrograde, and you're also going to have a full moon. So it's telling me that a lot of what's being worked out right now is like reassessing relationships, doing what's best for you, and perhaps that might mean that you have to put work first, and that you're reassessing certain relationships throughout this period. I know that when your chart ruler retrogrades in the 7th house, if you're meant to reconnect with somebody, or if you're meant to meet somebody, or if you're meant to stay with somebody, any of these things can apply. It's just going to take a little bit of time before you make some real serious long-term commitments with somebody publicly. Good luck. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You will be experiencing the Sun and Mars entering into your natal 6th house of Sagittarius. Now, this is an interesting energy because Sagittarius quincunx are in conjunct your sign. So if you're an early Cancer rising, you might kind of notice that there's something shifting. There's something that's like an itch that you need to scratch. You've got the 6th house, which deals with work and health and your daily routine, pets, and also coworkers. Mars has connections to your 5th house of creativity and self-expression, as well as your career. So as Mars is going through Sagittarius, there is a need to get into the sync or a cycle, or there is a need to come up with a routine or a plan. Some of you guys might quickly start a job. Some of you guys might quickly deal with a health-related matter. You might join a gym. Mars does very well in the 6th house, and so it really wants to get down to business. The only thing to take into consideration is that Mars and Saturn will both square, so we're going to see the Sun and Mars come into a square with Saturn. So that can represent some delays, some need to take action in your health, or take action in your habits or your daily routine. So that way you can maybe have a better outlook, a better philosophy, maybe to make it easier for you to make changes in your educational or your travel plans. I've seen some Cancer risings make the decision that they need to make changes in their schedule to make it possible to go back to school. I've seen other Cancer risings that are for legal reasons, having to hire an attorney or somebody to help them work through documents or paperwork. I've seen some people who are looking to fuse, spirituality or some kind of spiritual practice with health and wellness. And so any of these things can apply. Just watch for the challenges with the delays that might come. And it seems like it's not just about physical health, it's also about spiritual health and timing in regards to making changes when it comes to your work or your routine as well. Okay? Good luck. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You're going to be experiencing the Sun and Mars coming into Sagittarius in your natal 5th house. I like this energy for you. You know, Sagittarius is a sister sign, so at some point you will receive a trine from these two planets. And the sun does rule your chart. So to see the sun go through the 5th house where it has a lot of fun, with Mars nearby, it's bringing opportunity for travel, education, romance, adventure. And it's also giving you the opportunity, I think, to get out of the house a little bit and maybe find ways to kind of have more playtime. Now for you, I think that this is going to be about expressing creativity and assertiveness in a bold and enthusiastic manner. You might approach romantic pursuits with passion and a sense of adventure. There might be a sense of, you know, taking up more hobbies or pastimes that are going to be more kind of rough and tumble, or maybe like sports related or self-defense related. What I like about this is that you're going to see also trines that are going to go to the 9th house. So it's opening up your belief system, your philosophy, and eventually also opportunities for travel. Now, the challenge is that you are going to see that there are squares to Saturn in your 8th house. So the Sun square Saturn is going to be felt. There might be some kind of delay when it comes to expressing yourself, or a challenge with a child or a romantic partner. Saturn rules your 7th house of relationships and your 6th house of timing. So when it comes to, you know, maybe financial matters with a child, you know, there can be a sense of like teaching them more authority or responsibility when it comes to money management and spending. There can also be a sense of experiencing some kind of delays when it comes to connecting with romantic partners, and also being more open emotionally and vulnerable. I really feel like the 5th house is about opening your heart up and experiencing joy and creativity. And I think the square to Saturn is trying to help you mesh more so with another person, or really be breaking down or maybe dissolving any fears you have of like vulnerability. Anyway, this is also financial houses. So the 5th house is gambling and the 8th house is losses. So whether you're gambling with an investment or a romantic situation, it doesn't matter. There can be a sense of there being a slight delay or setback, but don't let that hold you back. Okay. Good luck, my Leo. We got Virgo and Virgo rising. You will be experiencing the Sun and Mars entering into the sign of Sagittarius in your natal 4th house. So this is the house of home and the past and family and your roots. Mars has connections to communications, siblings, vehicles, and travel. And you've got the conjunction that's brewing with the Sun. So some of you guys might be swiftly returning home, moving, connecting with family, addressing the past. There can also be some intense exchanges that you have with family members, especially male family members, so be mindful of that, Virgos. Mars has associations also with the 8th house of change and transformation. So some of you guys might be making changes in your home, you might be investing in your home, you might be moving house, or renovations can be going on. You're going to see with this conjunction between these two planets and the square to Saturn that there are some challenges or some delays maybe with relationships. So the 7th house is where we meet other people, and 5th house deals with romance and kind of connection. So I'm wondering if there's like a situation where there's a romantic situation brewing, or you've got a significant other and you're like, I'm going back home, you know, I'll see you soon. This is one of those situations where a little bit of space can make, I think, the heart grow fonder. So coming back, there can be a lot of togetherness. I think about how you're going to have a retrograde in your 4th house, and how you're going to see planets that are going to continue to square Saturn and Neptune in the 7th. And it's possible, those of you guys who are going back home, you know, to visit family, there's a lot of, well, why didn't you bring your significant other? Or when are you going to meet a nice girl? You know, type of vibe that can kind of go on at the holiday tables. For those of you guys who are partnered, it might mean that you're just doing the holidays different this year, and that there is some kind of need for preparation, or maybe you're going to a different place, or you're in a different area than you usually are, or flat out there's just some issues with like roommates and people that you're living with. The Mars-Saturn square could quite literally be, you know, having some intense exchanges within a partnership, and having some relationship challenges that are coming from just the changes that are going on in the home front. If you are an early degree, you're going to feel this a little bit more strongly. So the first couple degrees of Virgo, but also the end degrees, because you're going to see some Mercury-Neptune squares. So some miscommunications and misunderstandings can happen, create some conflict and strife that doesn't necessarily need to take place, okay? And it can become a family affair. It doesn't necessarily just have to be with a partner. Good luck. We've got Libra and Libra rising. You're going to be experiencing the Sun and Mars entering into Sagittarius, and this will be moving into your third house. The third house is all about, communication. This is about expressing assertiveness through communication in an enthusiastic way, very optimistic about learning or travel. And this can be about more action revolving around road trips, communication, writing, learning, anything in regards to sharing with groups of people. So likely you might be feeling a little restless, like you need to get out of the house and you need to do something. There can be a road trip on the agenda or a connection with siblings or with other family. And you're going to see, as these two planets are linking up in your third, it's coming into a square with Saturn in your sixth house. Now, this tells me that there is some friction when it comes to scheduling and timing. Third house might mean I got to take care of a sibling, or I'm still finishing up, college courses or lessons, or, I'm in the process of, maybe dealing with like moving or, buying a car, or anything in regards to travel. And then Saturn is like, let me mess with your schedule a little bit. Some ways that this could manifest is like you're going on a road trip and then you're like, whoa, there's something up with my car. Possible, because you've got a Mercury retrograde coming in this house. Other ways it could manifest is not staying on track or on schedule when it comes to an online situation. So if you're a blogger, if you're a YouTuber, if you're somebody who has an online business or something, there can definitely be some challenges meeting deadlines and getting everything done according to plan. You will have a Mercury retrograde here, so you'll have the opportunity to kind of rework a website or make something a little bit more self-sufficient. And I think about how the third house is communication, and the sixth house can be about your coworkers or people who help you at work. So there could be rushed emails and trying to get things done and stuff that just isn't meeting deadlines. There could be challenges also in communication with these people and difficult matters that you're having to kind of handle over email or over the phone, and you're just kind of getting lost in translation. And watch for issues revolving around traveling or moving and pets. That can be a huge theme here as well, with Saturn being in the sixth house, okay? And Saturn rules home, so this could also be like traveling delays or delays in regards to moving or delays in regards to family. So we have got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You're going to be experiencing Mars, which is your chart ruler, going into Sagittarius. So wherever Mars goes is where you go. It's moving into your second house, which deals with money, resources, finances, and also self-esteem, your possessions. And it has connections to health and daily routine. So as the Sun and Mars come into your second house, you're going to feel that there's going to be a much more assertiveness with pursuing your financial goals. Also valuing your independence and managing your resources. This is going to be about investing energetically into areas revolving around your personal wealth. So very strong financial period for you Scorpios. I think with the Sun and Mars, you're feeling really motivated to make money, get some business stuff done. You've got this trine going on to your midheaven, so it's definitely career related, especially if you're in the field of like education or advertising, travel, sales, any of that stuff. And with the Sun conjunction also, it's very strongly connected to what you're producing and putting out there. So this is a really strong financial time. Now, you will see a Mercury retrograde here, so you're going to be reassessing something about your money and your resources in the month ahead. And you will also see the Sun and Mars come into a square with Saturn in the fifth house. So for me, looking at this, it kind of feels like there is a need for you to really reflect on what's going to make you the most happy, not necessarily what's going to make you the most money. And I know that's not what you want to hear, But I do feel like a lot of what's going on with this period is the motivation to create something for the sake of creating, feeling like you're in the process of really enjoying what you're doing with the Sun and Mars, and also something that allows you to really shine and kind of show your skills in some capacity, because the second house is skills. I do feel like I would be really careful with investments this week, Scorpio, because the second house is what you possess and the fifth house is about taking gambles or risks. So this can indicate that if you're hot to buy something, you might buy it before it goes on sale, or you might buy a stock before you get it at a better price. Spending money does not necessarily equate to happiness, love, or romance. And it is possible that there is more of a need to apply yourself when it comes to working on your own happiness. And there are some things that money cannot buy. Expect some potential expense that might come from self-employment or from a hobby, or you might have to spend a little bit more money on a child or on a romantic partner with this square as well. Good luck. We've got Sag and Sag rising. You guys are the stars of the show. You guys are probably like, I'm the sheriff now. What can I say about this? Sun in the first house, Mars in the first house. These are two very strong positions. You guys are feeling particularly spicy. This is about presenting yourself with confidence and enthusiasm, going on adventures, asserting yourself, expressing your identity. We've got the Sun, which is the ruler of the 9th house of education and adventure. So if you're an adventurer or if you're a teacher, this is a really strong time for you. And then we've got Mars, which has connections to creativity, self-expression, and also your hidden talent. So I feel like some of you guys are just ready to go on a trip or on a vacation. Some of you guys are just ready to start a new physical fitness routine, but maybe something that's fun. Some of you guys are also probably feeling a little preachy with the Mars and the Sun conjunction and Mercury in your sign. Make everything about this energy about you, not about what your family's doing, not about what your partner's doing, because there's going to be a lot of situations you're going to see with the squares to Saturn in your house of family and the opposition with this full moon in the 7th house, where it's about you, and you might need to turn the volume down a little bit because it can be causing some friction with relationships or with relatives. You know, Saturn is going to be the focal point of this full moon. This is not a full moon video, but I would go watch it. And it shows some kind of action in a relationship, which is bringing about some necessary change either within the home or within the family. It might mean that there is like a big decision about, you know, a relationship which impacts a living situation. And it's kind of like we move in or we break up, or, you know, we relocate or we're done, or, you know, you deal with your mom or I'm out of here. These things can kind of happen. So be mindful of that and make all of this energy more about your action, your drive, your desire. Don't get lost in the conflict or the misunderstandings or the confusion of family or partners. Be more self-focused right now. You're going to use this Mercury retrograde in your first house to kind of really figure out what it is you want, how to get into better kind of harmony with yourself. And when you do that, you're going to be able to relate better to other people. But right now you're feeling super optimistic and kind of ready to go. So it's kind of like a get out of my way. I'm going after what I'm wanting. I'm really focusing on creativity and having fun. And there's just a lot of passion and drive for you this week. Okay? Good luck, Sag. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You will be experiencing Mars and the Sun entering into Sagittarius in your natal 12th house. Now, this is a house that is all about the subconscious. This is about, you really kind of working behind the scenes. Remember, Mars is assertiveness. So Mars being there tells me that you're a little bit more private about your goals. You're a little bit more secluded. It might be about really working through some of your hidden issues or talents and channeling some of this energy in a much more spiritual way. Now, I'm hoping you guys are traveling in a foreign place, or I'm hoping that you're, going and working in a retreat center, or you're doing something that's about change, transformation, or you're going somewhere that you want, maybe even if it's on your own. The Sun deals with the 8th house of joint resources and transformation. Mars deals with goals. It also deals with home. So if you're visiting family in a foreign land, or maybe you're traveling with a friend, or maybe you're just feeling a little bit more private and introspective. That can be happening in the 12th house as well. I think about how, you and the next two signs are all kind of getting the brunt of Mars. So fortunately, unfortunately, you guys are the ones who are holding the line, right? So Saturn is your chart ruler, and Saturn is in your 3rd house of communication in the mind. So as, Mars and the Sun go into the 12th house, some of you guys might kind of feel like you're putting a lid on frustration, and there can be a sense of repressing anger or frustration. I'm going to say be careful with doing that. You will have a Mercury retrograde that's going to start in your 1st house and drop into the 12th, which means it might mean that it's disrupting your sleep or creating anxiety or stress or issues with your body. Mercury, after all, does rule your health. So I think that there is a time to say something and there is a time to not say something. And if you feel like you can't communicate or interact with people in a peaceful manner, you still need an outlet. You need to be walking, journaling. You need to be doing something to kind of get that out and to be dissolving it. And sometimes it means that you don't even need to say anything at all. It means that you need to kind of go about it in a way that's going to be less confrontational and maybe dealing with it in another realm. Usually when Mars and the Sun are in the 12th house, you can have nightmares. And when you have a Mercury retrograde there can be a lot of nightmares and worst case scenarios and your dreams popping up and past life things that are getting resolved. You'll see symbolism and images of like war and things like that can pop up as well. So, definitely maybe burning something before you go to sleep to kind of protect your space can be really helpful, and finding ways to be able to express that energy in a positive way. I think of like shamanic drumming and beats and dancing. That can be really wonderful with Mars in the 12th house, okay? Definitely clearing some stuff out from the past because of Mars's connection to your 4th house. Good luck. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You will be experiencing Mars and the Sun entering Sagittarius in your natal 11th house. This is a fun time. This to me feels like a party energy. This feels like being around a lot of people, being able to enjoy being around groups and friends. Very busy social schedule. This is about being more assertive and enthusiastic around groups of people, being involved in social causes and hanging out with friends. You may be drawn more to dynamic and like-minded people, or you're kind of like searching for your tribe. I could definitely see that happening here. I think with Mars's connection to the 10th house and also to the 3rd, lots of like team meetings and coming together and finding ways to be able to better work together, and maybe some team building exercises. And I also think about how the Sun and Mars, they sextile your ascendant. So through kind of connecting with the right people, you can really kind of lean into being that Aquarius or Aquarius rising, which is being like a visionary, right? The problem is that these two planets are going to come into a square with Saturn in your 2nd house. And so Saturn in the 2nd house can be where a conflict or a squabble with a friend leads to a question of whether or not, you feel valued. And if somebody's, quick to maybe drop the friendship and how it makes you feel. Where there's a lot of socializing going on and the need to really kind of stick to a budget, or, watch your alcohol consumption, or watch how much money or time, you're spending socializing. Saturn is your chart ruler, and it represents being a little bit more conservative or being a little bit more cautious. And so I think a lot of this is going to come down to I'm going out and I'm doing things, and that's great, but how much am I actually spending, or how much of something am I actually consuming? And you might have some real party animal friends and people who are just one event after another, and you might kind of just realize you just can't either financially or time-wise facilitate everything. And definitely some differences of opinions, especially when it comes to, culture or, finances or politics with other people. So be mindful that definitely can be a theme throughout this particular square moving forward, okay? Good luck. And we have Pisces and Pisces rising. The sign that's taking the brunt of this. So we're praying for all those Pisces and Pisces rising. So you've got Saturn that's in your sign. This is about standing up for yourself. This is about healthy boundaries. This is about being real and mature and getting serious about making your dreams happen. Saturn has connections to your 11th house of others and also your 12th house of subconscious themes. Well, we've got Sun and Mars entering into Sagittarius. So it's like all lights and eyes are basically on you right now because you got planets at the top part of your chart. So this is all basically going to be about your public image. There's much more of like an assertive or competitive energy that's coming for you in regards to your career, your public life. You may feel that you're more willing to take risks or chances or step into leadership roles in your professional world and really show the world what you've got. Lots of potential for connecting with foreigners, teaching, some really aggressive promotional campaigns can happen here. You know, the sun wants the spotlight, and with the sun and Mars here, you're definitely going to get it, but I want you to know that you're going to experience a square to Saturn. So it can mean that there's some momentum that's picking up at work, and you know, you want to make sure that there's no blind spots. You want to make sure that you're also keeping up with other team members, because you might feel like leaders or managers can be like extra pushy with the Sun and Mars coming into a square with Saturn, because they're basically saying, hurry up, let's go, get going. So you don't want to be seen as the slug, but at the same time, there can be a sense of a lot of motivation, and this can be your time to shine, where people are really seeing you for somebody who's made great strides in your career, having a lot of success, getting the recognition that you're wanting. So the square to Saturn can mean that you're now presenting yourself as like a new professional, or you have a new title, and you're reemerging in some way where you're showing the world, you know, all the things that you know. Part of me feels inclined to tell you, like, don't take crap from anybody this week, because it is possible, whether it's a boss or a coworker, you know, the sun rules coworkers, or some kind of like a teacher or a mentor or somebody who's a superior. Somebody can kind of come down on you a little bit. But I would definitely stand up for myself. That's my opinion. And I think that if you're realizing that something's just not working at work, it can be that you're coming into the Mercury square Neptune energy in the shadow of the Mercury retrograde, where maybe there's some stuff that goes on where you're like, man, maybe it is time to change jobs, or, you know, switch departments, or, you know, I'm not getting along with my boss in some capacity. This can also be status changes in general, though, because Mercury going retrograde is not just about job changes. It can be about relationship changes or changes in regards to your home and family. So it doesn't always mean it's related to career. If you're somebody who doesn't work, it can be about your relationship to your parents or your partner as well. But yeah, try to move and roll with the punches this week. And, you know, I think Saturn on your ascendant is like learning to tell people no, or not yet, or no thank you, or, you know, showing people what you've got, how strong you are, right, with Saturn being in your sign. All right, guys, well, I hope that's helpful in helping you navigate the next week ahead. Remember to hold your horses. Come back, leave me comments, let me know how you're feeling with these energies, how this is playing out for you. I'd love to hear how this is manifesting for all of you guys. As always, thank you guys for all of your likes, your comments, your shares. Make sure you subscribed and share this with other people who could benefit from this week's astro weather. I will catch you guys all back here on Tuesday. This week we're going to be doing a Sagittarius extravaganza. We're going to take a deeper look at Mars's trek through Sagittarius, and we're also going to take a look at the Mercury retrograde. So those of you guys who are Saggies are getting all kinds of extras this week. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Enjoy this evening and all of those T-squares. I hope it goes well, and I will see you guys back here next week. Take care.